So today is all about questions about chickens. We have had quite a few questions come through on a variety of social media channels. So I thought I'd actually write some of them down and go through them today. So one of the biggest ones is, what type of chickens do we have? So we actually have Silkie chickens. I do believe they're a type of bantam chickens. So bantam is just like the smaller versions. I actually grew up with bantam chickens from my dad's house and my stepmom's house because she had bantam chickens. Basically, they are smaller than normal chickens. They come in like different colors and stuff too, but they do have fluffy feet. And that's one of the main things that I really love about them. They're super, super fluffy. They have really fluffy bums. They have fluffy feet. And the ones that we have actually also have the fluffy head dress things, fluffy heads. So there are many, many different types. The ones that we have are Silkies, and I think they're one of the best with just being cuddly, and honestly they feel like little cotton balls when you like put out your hand to feed them or something and they come and like peck, or if they come and sit on you or something. It's just like so fluffy, like little cotton balls. And they're also one of probably the more tame types. They are quite cuddly. They do like human interaction, and especially after the few month mark, or if you start them off really early with human interaction, they will really settle down. And if you go up to them, they basically just crouch, and then you can just pick them up like that. They are also one of the more broody types, which is also what we wanted them for. We want to breed them and then we can rehome them to other people that want them as pets, things like that. And I just love having them around. So it's amazing to be able to breed them. And they are actually one of the more broody types. So they will, between 2 and 3 times a year, Silkie chickens will basically just sit down in their little nests that they have, and they'll just sit there for days on end, only come down to have a poop, to drink some water and to eat some food, and then go straight back up. So they do actually lose quite a bit of weight in this time, and if there aren't any fertile eggs for them, then they will lay and gather them until they have about 8 to 10, depending on the type of chicken and depending on how big they are and what they want to handle. So enough so they can scoop them under. They scoop them under with their beaks and get them underneath all their feathers, and they just sit on them. So they will sit on them for weeks on end. I think they usually incubate for about 21 days. So they will sit on them for 21 days, and then they will hopefully help them hatch. The first couple times, especially with ours as well, they were first time mums, both of them. So because we didn't have a rooster, we just put fertile eggs. I bought them from someone else, put the fertile eggs underneath them, and they basically treated them as their own. And then once they hatched, they basically just became their surrogate mothers, and it was so cute to watch. Because they are first time mums though as well, I have mentioned this before in a couple other videos, but they do need a little bit of help with their first time, and also with some of the chickens, they might actually not know how to break the chicks out of the eggs. So sometimes you do need to help them along, but you do need to pay a lot of attention to what part of the process the baby chick is in. That's like a whole other thing. You need to do so much research before you want to take that on, really. So you can help them at the right stage because they aren't quite there yet. Nature takes a lot, right? It gives them a lot, but they aren't experts yet. So they will take probably a couple more times to really figure out how to be great mums, especially in the hatching times and in the first few days. But honestly, they are amazing. Like, they just took them like their own, and even we had to put a couple of 1-day-old and 1-week-olds underneath them. They treated them like their own, and they followed them around and brought them up as is. So I would definitely recommend Silkie hens as pets. Obviously in suburban areas you can't have roosters, so you can't do the whole breeding thing. And there are limits as well with councils. I think it's like 20 or 30 chickens or something like that, which is a lot. We have about 9 right now, and they're everywhere all the time. They're so gorgeous. When it comes to what type of shelter or coop they need, there are so many different types, and Pinterest is a great tool for this. We just got a couple of cheaper versions, little hutches, basically just a bit bigger than a rabbit hutch, basically, just with the extra things so they can go up and have their space to roost at nighttime. We do really want to build a big coop for them, but it's something that we can't do in the place that we're at now. So we do have just 2 coops at the moment. The ducks have one and the chickens have the other one, but they have definitely outgrown it. So we do need to, we bought another one. We need to set that up, yeah, very, very soon, because they do huddle all together at nighttime, but it's a lot of weight and it's a lot for them. So it's good for them to have some space and, you know, have their own little coop. What do they eat and how much do they need to be fed? So we do feed them at different times depending on the time of year. In summer, it's recommended that you don't actually feed them in the morning because eating will help warm their bodies up. And obviously that you don't really want that in the big summer days when they are very susceptible to heat stroke and all sorts of things. So feeding is pretty simple. You just get the right kind of seed and we feed them at nighttime. We feed them the scraps and stuff. There are a few things that they can't have, pretty similar to other types of poultry or birds. So you just look that up. If we are cutting up something for dinner and we have some scraps and we're not sure, you just give it a quick Google search and then throw them out to them. Their eggshells as well are really, really good for them. I think a lot of other people use oyster grit or something. We haven't got that far yet because we're not super obsessed about them laying. And it doesn't get cold enough here in winter for us to really need to give them something else. But we do like to give them their shells. They will eat them and it helps them produce the calcium that they need to lay more eggs. One thing that we have been struggling a little bit with, or just really having to be wary of this summer because of the absolute humidity change, is mites. It's definitely something that needs to be, you need to be aware of it. If you're going to get chickens before it hits summer, you need to do the preventative treatments. Again, there's so many different ways. You can buy like the treatment, make it up, like the water soluble one, mix with water and then spray them, or you dunk them. And obviously if you get an outbreak of mites, usually it's from, we think, our like magpies and stuff that hang around. There's a lot of wild birds that hang around and try and get into their coop and their feed and everything. So they are kind of around them quite a bit. So we do think it's from them. There's a couple other things that could happen as well they could come from. So it's just good to keep on top of it, keep aware of it. And then obviously if you're giving them cuddles and stuff, you need to wash your clothes straight after if they do have any signs of mites at all. It can get bad if you don't treat it. It's not nice to look at. Like, they're super, super tiny, but they will basically draw all the blood out of them eventually if it gets that bad. And yeah, it can kill them for sure. We haven't had any issues like that. Like, we've had our first big outbreak and we just saw a couple more, so we're getting back on top of it, the treatment for probably the last time as we're getting into winter. But yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. When it comes to having companions for chickens, I think it's really good to have at least 2 or 3. I would say 3 minimum, because like, things can happen if you have a fox get in or a cat or something. If something happens to one of them, they have a health issue, like it happens, right? They don't want to be left alone if you only had 2 and 1 goes. So I think 3 is a really good starting point. Again, it'll be 3 hens. And if you get them around the same age, then they grow up together and they're besties like our 2 mamas are. So even though they have had their own babies and stuff and they've all basically grown up now, it's been maybe 3 or 4 months, they are back to hanging around with each other and cuddling each other at nighttime and going for little walks through the garden, just them 2 together. As I said before, we do have the shelter, the coops at nighttime for them. We do lock them up and we make sure that there is no big holes underneath the sides or anything. We move it around quite a bit as well. That is to prevent any mice even coming in at nighttime to grab their food that could bring them diseases, stuff like that. Possibly snakes, depending where you are. Snake snake-proofing a shelter is different. So you definitely need to look into that if snakes are prevalent in your area. Foxes, cats, everything like that, we definitely make sure to lock them up every single night before dark. They actually put themselves to bed. So that's amazing. You just need to put that latch on, and then we let them out in the morning and they're fine to free range all day in our backyard because it's secure and there's no predators around us. It really depends on what your area is like. If you have a big plot of land where you live, are there predators around, yada yada. So just do some research on the specific things in your area if you need to. One of the main things that people, I think, don't realize is that there is a little bit of work involved, right? They do kind of look after themselves as long as you have the basics down, like food, water, shelter, blah, blah, blah. But if you want to actually have them be cuddly and come to you if you need to, then it's a good idea to start calling them by their names. Owls respond to their names and they will run from the back of the yard all the way over. Respond to our names, respond to our voices. They remember faces as well. I think they remember up to 100 faces. I think I read that somewhere. So that is definitely a lot of faces. It's a lot of people to remember, and if you have a good relationship with them, they will remember that specifically. So especially if you're the one to feed them, spend some time hand feeding them. If they're not interested, then wait till they're really hungry. They'll probably like squawk at you or whatever, and then you can just get some seed in your hand and really lay it right, maybe on the ground or just above, and just be super, super still. You've got to be super still and they'll just go around, they'll figure it out. Chickens are quite good at that. Ducks are a lot more shy, but they still come and are hand fed. Even though they don't like cuddles, the ducks still are happy to be hand fed because they do love food. Whereas our chickens are pretty happy to be picked up, but we do have the little ones at the moment that are still growing up and still discovering their place within the hierarchy of like the 9 or 10 chickens we have. So that's something that they're figuring out, and they're also kind of figuring out us, because our 2 older ones are super, super chill with us. One of them more so for sure. They definitely have their own personalities, but both of them are super loving and will come for cuddles anytime. The younger ones we do have to put in some work, so that's when hand feeding them comes in handy. That's where just being quiet, moving slowly. If you feed them around the same time every day, they'll really get used to that routine and they'll get used to hearing you and stuff as well. And if you just call out to them, if you're in, say, our kitchen looks over the yard, we can call out to them from the kitchen and just kind of check on them and they'll call back to us. All in all, they are honestly amazing, and it's just something that lights up my day so much. Like, I can come home from work, or I can be working from home, or I come out in the morning with my coffee and they're there, they're ready to be put out of their cage. So if I wake up a bit later, it's an excuse for me to get out of bed, which sometimes I do need. I think sometimes we all need a bit of that. So I have to get out of bed at least so I can unlock that latch, maybe give them some food depending on what the weather's going to be like that day, top up their water, all of that stuff, make sure they're okay, and yeah, just say hi to them and stuff, and then I can go about my day and then do the same thing at nighttime. So it's definitely like something that is super soothing for me. I love that I can come home and just sit there, and it's not like a dog or anything that needs your attention, which I do, of course, love my puppy that I have. But sometimes it's nice to just be chill. And then she can also be chill next to me and we can all just watch them do their little thing, and they're so cute. If you've seen any of my videos, you are aware of that already, but they are just adorable. So yeah, I definitely do recommend, if you have the space, the time, the resources, obviously the money to get set up, and if you're really going to look after them, they are just one of the most magical creatures on earth. Honestly, I love them so much. One of the best pets that you could have, and they also provide free eggs. And they are very good for your parts of your garden. If you do have a really nice garden bed, they will screw it up with all their scratching. but they are really good at stirring up the dirt and getting nutrition in there, and their poop is really good for the garden and stuff like that. So honestly, I just love them so much. If you have any stories you would like to share, any of their specific personalities, if you have any chickens, or if you have any name suggestions, because we do have 7, 8 little babies that do need names, so feel free. We do have some boys and some girls. But I think the girls are the ones that will be mostly staying with us for their lifetime. But yeah, any more questions, pop them below or send me a message on Instagram. And make sure to follow us on TikTok as well if you're on there. Bye.